Today is for today's Wake the Fuck Up Daily. We are talking about why parents are asking new questions around hormones and child development. This is going to be a touchy subject because I know some might just be pretenders, but I'm about truth, authenticity, and talking about what's real in the world. I have been coming to you with faith, but this is aligned with my faith because I'm speaking to what's going on in the world, and that is part of my faith. Speaking truth and being accountable, or not accountable. Well, yeah, I am accountable because I know. When you know things, you got to share it. When you learn new information, you need to act on it. Okay. And to be silent when you know things can help people, then you are participating in the nonsense. So we're about to get real. It is a sensitive topic, and I am um gonna do my best to be mindful of that. This topic is for the audience is for mothers, parents, and caregivers. I would say if you are a father, you should know about this. Okay, the purpose is to help parents understand why questions are rising biologically, bio, bi, biologic. Why am I struggling with that word? Biology, environmentally, culturally, and how to respond wisely. Okay, this is just a little disclaimer. You might it might trigger you a little bit. And it's not to do that. If it does, you know what? There's a reason for it. And so we have to look at that. Okay. I don't want you to be defensive. This is just talking about real world, real situations that could be affecting your children, your grandchildren, generations after this. Okay. I believe Yahweh wants us to share. When we learn new things, we have to act on it. So parents today are asking questions that, weren't common a generation ago. Okay. Questions about hormones, development, and the gender. Let's get real. We're seeing a lot of transgender. I, there was a time when we're seeing a lot of things around this topic, really. You're seeing more kids that are diagnosed with ADHD. We're seeing more kids that are diagnosed with autism. We're seeing a lot of different things. And if you were born in the 70s or before that, okay, when I was younger, I did not see this like we're seeing it today. So then it raises questions, right? We have to ask these things. Why? Why are we seeing all this? The real issue isn't that parents are confused. It is that they were never given the full picture. This episode is not about blaming children, not blaming parents. No, I'm not attacking families. It's about reducing identity to a single cause, or it's not about reducing identity to a single cause. There could be a lot of different things, but this is part of what could be the issue. Okay, so it's about understanding how biology, environment, development, and culture intersect, and why parents deserve honest information so they can protect their children's long-term health. Don't you want to do that? Don't you want to protect your children? And don't you want to share this with, you know, your children so that they can carry on a legacy of being of wisdom and knowledge so that they can become the best human beings that they can be, right? We have to share. We have to be leaders. That's what a leader does. So why is this conversation happening now? If you were born in the 70s, like I said, or maybe even the 80s, you probably didn't hear daily conversations about gender, identity, and childhood. Okay. You also didn't see the same rates of early puberty, ADHD diagnoses, food allergies, or indoctrination related conditions. Parents today are noticing earlier onset of puberty. I remember these conversations happening. I started my period, okay, for ladies, Hopefully ladies are watching. If you're a guy, maybe it's not for you. But I started my first period the summer going into 7th grade. I believe it was the summer going into 7th grade. And I think that was pretty much the same with my daughter. It's funny, it seems to always happen when you're at camp or something and your parents aren't around. That's how it happened for me. Just to give you a funny story, when I started my period, I was in that summer, I went boating with the neighbor across the street and her family. And it was so embarrassing because it was like the second day we were there, I started my period. And my mom and I didn't really have big conversations around that kind of stuff. She probably didn't expect me to start right then. She's thinking about her life and all the stuff she has going on. And I remember we had a little bit of conversation about it, maybe in 6th grade. But like I said, I was a bad student. I was more concerned about what was going on in the home front than what they were teaching. And so anyway, so I start my period and I had nothing, and it was not a light one. And it was a boating trip. And I learned on that trip that, so I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to ask the parents. I didn't want to ask her parents for anything. I didn't want to tell them. I kept it a secret from anyone. I didn't even tell my girlfriend. I was so embarrassed. Since we were boating, that was kind of the best part of it, because when I would get in the cold water, it would go away. It would stop the bleeding. And then when I got out a few hours later, it would start up again. And so I remember going to the outhouse that they had there and just wrapping up all this toilet paper and like shoving it down in my underwear. That was really embarrassing, to be honest. And I remember telling my daughter, and then I wanted to it was so horrific for me. I remember telling my daughter, like, this happened to me. I just want you to be aware this could happen to you. And I can't remember when my daughter, I'll have to ask her when she did. But it always seems to happen when you're not prepared and when you're maybe away from your parents. But anyway, I think that was pretty much the normal time to start. I would be curious when girls are starting now, if you have anyone that you know of that has started really early with her period, like earlier than 7th grade. Because that was, so moms, make sure you have that conversation with your daughters. It could happen in the summer. I heard that story from other people too after me. Okay, so parents are today noticing earlier onset of puberty, increased neurological diagnoses. That's like the, ADHD and all that stuff. More children questioning identity at younger ages. Greater emotional distress during development. Greater emotional distress during development. These questions didn't appear out of nowhere. They emerged alongside massive changes in environment, diet, chemical exposure, media, and medical intervention. Boom! Okay, they don't talk to us about these things, so it's important we have these conversations, right? I'm going to wear my glasses because obviously my font's a little lighter than it was yesterday. What's up? Thank you for being here. So the role of hormones in child development. Hormones are chemical messengers that guide the brain development. So I want you guys to know that we're going to get into more of this, but a lot of this happens when they're in the uterus. Why the mom is carrying the baby. So we're going to dive into that. It's so interesting. Hormones are chemical messengers that guide brain development, emotional regulation, physical maturation, sexual development. Testosterone specifically plays a role, male fetal development in the utero, brain organization before birth, puberty-related changes, muscle, bone, and confidence-related traits. Okay, so if you're seeing more men that are lacking masculinity, they're lacking muscle and bone and confidence, this could be why. Okay? Hormones don't just shape our bodies, they shape timing, signaling, and development. Disruption doesn't mean elimination, it means interference with the signaling. Okay, so I want to tell you a little story. So there was this boy that was a neighbor of ours. This is when I realized that I didn't think that children just decided that they were going to be gay. Okay? I had a neighbor and they had this little boy. He was 5 years old, 5 or 6 at the time, maybe 7. His name was Josh. And he came over, and my girlfriend that lived next door to me, she was there with me. And when he came over, he was selling something from his school. And I remember his mannerisms. It was so feminine. Okay, so I'm trying to help you guys understand where we could see this. So it was so feminine. And I was just surprised because I was like, there's no way he could be thinking that he already is. So that's when I realized I think people are born with it. So then it raised the question, why are there more boys born with these female traits? So then you start digging into this and you can learn a lot. Okay. So, in doctrine, disrupting chemicals are substances that can mimic hormones, block hormones, alter hormone production or timing. Okay, common sources include certain plastics, BPA, pesticides. We are seeing they're taking over our crops with these other pesticides, right? Herbicides, the chemicals in, the chemicals this is synthetic fragrances, some food packaging, certain personal care products, environmental pollutants. These chemicals don't act like poisons in the traditional sense. They act quietly by confusing the body's hormone signals. This is especially concerning during pregnancy, early childhood, and puberty, when development is time sensitive. So what the science is actually saying, science does not say EDCs cause transgender identity. Science does show EDCs can affect hormone levels, puberty timing, neurodevelopment, and reproductive development. Identity is complex. It includes biology, psychology, environment, family, and culture. And we're also seeing where there's these people online, like Roblox and all these different places, these, different sites where kids are going. I met this kid where he says that this guy online helped him realize he was a transgender. So that was concerning. So how did this guy help you realize you were transgender? Or was he just putting it in your brain? And now all of a sudden you believe you're that because you want to belong. Okay? We have to be careful as parents what our kids are watching or consuming. And we need to know who they're talking to. Okay? The concern parents are not raising is not identity itself, but whether children are developing in a biological stable environment. So why this connects to today's gender questions. When hormone signaling is altered, when development timing shifts, when brains and bodies are under stress, it's reasonable that children may experience confusion or distress. This does not invalidate someone's experience. It does mean parents deserve transparency. Long-term studies matter. One-size-fits-all answers are irresponsible. Children should not be rushed toward irreversible decisions. This is my biggest point I want to land. Children should not be making these decisions. changing their identity. We have to make sure we are not signing off on that, parents. These children are children. You know what I mean? Their brain is completely underdeveloped. They're not even developed till they're like 21. Children should not be rushed towards irreversible decisions when the science around development is still evolving. And we need to understand, we need to know what's causing some of these issues and do preventative care. So here's what you can do as a parent right now. Reduce unnecessary chemical exposure. Choose glass over stainless steel when possible. Avoid heating food in plastic. Use fragrance-free products if possible. You know, that's so hard. I love like lotions and potions that smell so good because they smell so good. I love candles that smell so good. But I want to tell you, my dad started a business, and my stepmom, where they make toxic-free candles, and they actually smell really good. You can smell it all through the house. I used to think that if you bought toxic-free ones, they didn't smell very good, but these ones that they're making, they actually smell really good, and they're not harmful. So that's kind of cool. So you can find, good smelling candles and stuff that are toxic free. But just being, aware of this stuff. Prioritize whole unprocessed foods. Okay, that's important. You want to eat real food. Okay, here's another thing. Like we can only do so much as people. They're messing up our crops. We need to buy from local farmers. We need to buy our food from ranchers that we know, like, and trust. Okay? Because there's leaders out there that are doing things that are not ethically in our best, interest. And we have to act. The only way we can act is not buy for those suckers. You know what I mean? Quit buying the food at the grocery store. If we can't trust it, start buying from local farmers. And we just have to start doing those things. We need to support the local farmers in our areas. Or you can even get them shipped, okay? So I think that's a really important thing. Make sure you're eating whole foods, not processed foods. That's a big part. If you guys read up on what these harmful products do, and what's in all these oils, they're so harmful. Okay, support hormone health naturally. Encourage outdoor play. Your kids need to go outside and play. Okay, I know the games are fun. My son loved the games, and we literally moved to Wyoming, and that's when we told him absolutely no games here. One day he pushed it so far that my ex-husband took a bat to the TV and literally smashed it. And it was crazy, the aftermath. I mean, it turned into a huge fight and screaming match because that was his TV. But he had been warned. Look, buddy, you're going to go out and you're going to learn how to communicate with people and make friends and shake hands and, be social out. I think that's important, you guys. Okay. That's what, we need to limit their computer time. I mean, I don't think it's terrible. We have gamers. I think there's some kids that can make a lot of money from it, but they also need to know how to go out and shake hands. Okay. And it's good for their health. So another okay, prioritize sleep. They need their sleep. One thing that my son, I know that there were so many nights that he didn't get proper sleep. And part of it was because he was on ADHD medicine. Okay. But then also the games, fighting the whole game situation. We need to support nutrient-dense diets, limit ultra-processed foods, emotional safety, okay? Listen without panic, hear them out. Make sure you're an open door so they know they can come to you for anything. That's one thing that I always did, is try to always have an open door for my kids. I didn't freak out because I had a wild childhood. I could pretty much handle anything. Like, tell me what you got going on. Let's work through it, except for when my daughter told me she was pregnant. I really did have a hard time with that. She was 16, going on 17, and she told me she was pregnant. Actually, it was the month she turned 17. That's when she got pregnant. And it was crazy because I had already talked to her about everything I went through. And and I had her on the pill actually, but then I took her off. I didn't take her off. I asked her in January. I said, "Are you still taking your pill? Do we need to get a refill?" She goes, "No, we're not doing anything like that. Don't trust your kids, okay?" Or just second guess them, okay? Because she told me, "Oh, no, it's not like that. We're not doing that kind of stuff." Well, the next month, she told me she was pregnant. So it all works out, okay? If that happens to you moms, I want you to know everything always works out, okay? Learn from me. I didn't talk to her for 2 weeks. I was going through a divorce, my first divorce, and so financially I was feeling like a little bit of pressure. Then she told me she was pregnant. It just added on that. I compounded. It was the timing. I was like a little bit of a hot mess. And then you know, it all works out. You know, she knew she needed to figure things out. She still graduated with her class. She she went on to take a tech class to do pediatric teeth. You know, she worked in in a pediatric dental office, and then she went and got her nail. Went and got certified to do nails and become a nail tech. So everything works out. You know, I have incredible grandkids. My daughter's just she's, you know, kind of a baddie. So, you know, I just want you guys to know, whatever happens in life, just, you know, you'll get through it. So listen without panic. Learn from me. Ask questions without judgment. Avoid rushing to labels or solutions. And here you can ask better questions. What's happening in my child's body? You know what? I know a guy online. He said his when he was 18, his testosterone was like 1,000. Okay. Then he checked his son's testosterone when his son turned 18, and it was like super low, extremely low. And so that tells you right there, there's some issues going on in our environment. Okay. And everything they're pushing down, you know, vaccines, everything. Okay. All of it could be a play in it. So just know what they're putting in your child's body, and what are you putting on your child? What food are you letting them eat? All the things. It matters. In fact, I would love my son to get his testosterone checked. One day in the future, I'm going to be getting that handled. What environmental factors could be at play? And are we supporting long-term health? This is not about fear. It's not about controlling, but it's not about denying anyone's humanity. It's about informed consent, biological literacy, understanding the health system, understanding what you're buying, what you're just saying okay to. If they're saying, "Oh, we got to put in 4 shots in one day," question that. No, why? I don't want my kid to have all that. They don't even need it, to be honest. Okay, protecting children during the most vulnerable stages of their development. Isn't it crazy that they're born and they immediately just start putting these vaccines in them? You know, my granddaughter has never had she's never even been to a doctor. Not even once. She was born at home. She's never had a shot, and she's healthy. She's great. She's so intelligent. You guys, you have to think, okay? Parents, asking questions is not the problem. Silencing them is. If your doctor gives you pushback, find another doctor, fire that doctor, okay? Find a doctor that doesn't push that stuff. Truth requires courage, and protecting children requires wisdom. If this conversation made you uncomfortable, that doesn't mean it's wrong, okay? It means it matters. It means I stirred something up in you, and you have to get uncomfortable sometimes, all right? It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. That's all I'm going to say. It's just the way it is, okay? If there's anything that I can do for you, if you have any questions, you know, I'm an open door. I'm a cool kid. Okay? Should we pray? We're still going to pray because I think it's important. Yahweh, thank you for another day. Thank you for the breath in her lungs, for the wisdom you continue to provide, and for the clarity rising within her. Thank you for her family, for the growth happening even when it feels quiet, and for the strength you are building through responsibility. Thank you for the relationships in her life and for the opportunities already present and for those unfolding in perfect timing. Thank you that she doesn't need to wait to matter. She matters now. She is here for such a time as this, and we honor her courage, her discernment, and all that she is becoming. Amen.
I'm gonna go tanning. She's watching her show.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello from, I'm doing great. Is it Lewid? Some of these names are just real. Yoga is very beautiful. Yes, yoga is great. I need to do more yoga. I love stretching. Stretching, it just feels amazing. I should incorporate some yoga. You know what? I will be incorporating some more yoga. I'm going to nail yoga, okay? I'm going to mark that down. That is one of the things that I am going to get really good at is yoga. I think it is so good for the health. But also good for the health is building muscle. But you can actually build muscle through yoga. Those stretches, you're using your body weight and the way that you're moving your muscles and working them out in ways that you don't realize. So I think yoga is great. Maybe I'll become a yogi. Anyway, guys, I think you're awesome. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you have an incredible Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.